Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And today we will continue our introduction to essay writing topic. Our word of today is farce, and a farce is a ridiculous act, proceeding, or situation. Farce can also refer to a light dramatic work marked by satirical comedy and improbable plot, or the broad humor characteristic of such. The word the word can also refer to a savory stuffing. Example sentence: the company's guarantee is a farce, she complained. The replacement they sent broke even more quickly than the original. Did you know that from Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, many of us are familiar with farce in its dramatic sense? However, when farce first appeared in English, it had to do with cookery, not comedy. In the 14th century, English adopted farce from Middle French with its original meaning of forcemeat, that is, a highly seasoned mincemeat or fish, often served as a stuffing. In the 16th century, English imported the word again, this time to refer to a kind of knockabout comedy already popular in France. French farce has its origins in the 13th century practice of stuffing Latin church texts with explanatory phrases. By the 15th century, a similar practice of inserting unscripted buffoonery into religious plays had arisen. Such farces, which included clowning, acrobatics, reversal of social roles, and indecency, soon developed into a distinct dramatic genre and spread rapidly in various forms throughout Europe. So here we have a little history behind it, and those who do theater, and even as you approach your drama pieces for English literature, you will probably come across this word again, or you might have already came across it. So with that being said, we go right into our lesson. So we will talk about skills to use in essay writing, specifically using appropriate voice and language. Using appropriate language. Knowing your audience helps you choose the appropriate language for your essay. The type of essay you are writing also helps with your choice of language. So, an argumentative essay will use words like argue, claim, disagree, moot, opponent, and opposition, while a sequential essay uses words like next, then, first, second, third, and last. Additionally, different writing genres use different types of language, even if they have the same purpose. So an essay describing a snake would sound different from a poem describing a snake. And we know that especially literary writing, they are more descriptive, they use more figurative language and all of these features. Meanwhile, an essay is more direct. It is more, well, it is most times objective. It can be subjective as well. But yes, differences will occur in different genres of writing. So when writing academically, it is best to avoid slang, regional expressions, and non-standard English. So you are expected to write just standard English, just plain English. Yeah, basically that is it. Avoid contractions. Example, your, don't, won't, etc. Use an appropriate level of formality. So generally, as you write your essay, especially at this stage, you are expected to use such language that it is not too casual, but it is also not too pretentious, or what else can I say this? Yeah, pretentious is the best word I can use. So you should just use simple, but not too casual of a language, right? And then, of course, based on who your audience is, again, the level of formality will change. So if you're writing a letter to your principal, I would have used this analogy in a previous lesson. It would sound different from a letter to your friend. If you're writing a letter to the editor, it would sound different from a letter to your principal. So your audience will also affect your formality. But generally, you're not to be too casual and you're not to be too pretentious. So just because you have long sentences or you use large words from the dictionary, etc., doesn't mean that you're gonna get full marks. So it is best for you to just be simple how you speak, be direct, and try your best to just write logically. Next, avoid jargon, which is inappropriate use of specialized or technical language. So let me give you an example. An opposition education theory holds that children learn Spanish based on the strict discipline conditions. The words opposition education theory, or phrase I should say, and under strict discipline conditions, they are used incorrectly in the sentence. So again, just because you see a person use complicated phrases or big words doesn't necessarily mean that what they write makes sense. And they don't always use these phrases and words in the right way. So a way to revise that sentence or inappropriate use of language, we'll say, an alternative theory of education holds that children learn Spanish best when strict discipline is enforced. And that is just how it is. Right. Also, if you are using technical terms when writing for an audience that does not understand these terms, ensure that you define them, right? Next point, avoid euphemisms. Yeah. Substitute words for harsh realities and all doublespeak. Language used to obscure facts or mislead your readers. So what are euphemisms? As I said before, substitute words for harsh realities. So for example, correctional facility for prison, passing for death. All of these things, well, both of these things, they are euphemisms or euphemisms. Not really sure how to pronounce it. But it is best to avoid most of them unless you are speaking again to an audience where it is better to use these words or phrases. Doublespeak, simply language used to obscure facts or mislead your readers. So as you research your topic, and even if you buck up on something that you don't necessarily agree with, if it falls in line with your topic that you have, you either have to change your topic or you have to include that information. So you're not going to take that information and obscure it in a way that it does not exist, or you have a piece of evidence or research that goes against your initial thinking. You're not going to reword it to go according to your thoughts or mindset. If it goes against, either omit it, choose a different topic, or put it in if it needs to be in, right? Avoid biased language. So racism, prejudice, all of those things, your markers don't want to see that in your writing. You can leave it on your social media, on a private account, but not in your academic writing. So leave biased language out of it and avoid stereotypes. Avoid sexist language. Easy peasy, simple. I don't think I have to explain that. Using appropriate voice. Although there is no audio attached to your writing, your reader will hear the voice you created as they read your work. Catherine, can't pronounce her last name, Schulten, maybe. In her New York Times article, Writer's Voice, Intolerance and Love in Jamaica, describes a writer's voice as the way his or her personality comes through on the page, via everything from word choice and sentence structure to tone and punctuation. So different writing assignments allow you to try out different voices. Readers tend to appreciate an even tone of voice that remains objective, but avoids the extremes of the impersonal or the intimate, the stuffy, or the casual. So again, as you write your essays, I should say, sometimes you may have to write objectively, other times you will include your opinion, your thoughts on the topic. As you write, you don't want to seem as if you have no connection to the topic. So you don't want it to seem impersonal. You want your reader to be comfortable in knowing that you understand what you're talking about, even if you don't know all that there is on the topic. They need to feel reassured, that you know what you are saying. Next, stuff, you are the casual. As I said before, you don't want to sound too pretentious. So the extra long sentences, the big words, long phrases, and you don't really understand how to use them. So your work is hard to read for a normal reader, and you're not using the definitions to the best of your ability. Therefore, it is just best to write simply, state your points as they are, don't go around the bush, just present the evidence. And you don't want it to be too casual either, right? So let's look at some examples of different voices. First one, the epistolary mode of literary expression has assumed numerous distinctive guises since its original manifestation more than 4,000 years ago in the cuneiform inscripts of ancient Sumer. Now this, again, is an example of stuffy writing. It uses, it's one long sentence, as you see. So, as you imagine, there are some people who do write in this style. But you who are just a high school student and even in college, you're not expected to write this in this type of voice. The sentences don't have to be this long and they don't have to be using these words in every single section of the sentence. It can be simplified, and especially in cases where you have word limits, you know that every single word counts. So using this type of voice or writing would not be best when a word limit is attached to your work assignment, etc. And of course, as you go into the exam, you are being timed as well. So you don't want to be writing in this type of style unless you can write fast. Next, letters have been around for a really long time. This leans more to the casual side. I don't really think I have to explain this one. And lastly, as Kenny points out, letter writing has flourished ever since it first emerged among the ancient Sumerians. And this would be the appropriate academic voice. So it's not too short and it's not too long. It includes evidence. So I'm guessing Katie would be an academic source. Yes. So ensure that you use the appropriate academic voice and writing style so that you state your points clearly, you state them confidently, and you use your words with care. So now we're going to compare voices in articles. So here we have an article entitled Poles Who Push Electric Cars Ignore Basic Math and Physics by John Stossel in the New York Post, November 16, 2022. Right. So politicians praise electric cars. If everyone buys them, they say, solar and wind power will replace our need for oil. But that's absurd. Here is the rest of my list of inconvenient facts about electric cars. The future of the auto industry is electric, says President Biden. He assumes a vast improvement in batteries. Better batteries are crucial because both power plants and cars need to store lots of electric power. But here's inconvenient fact number 3. Batteries are lousy at storing large amounts of energy. So here we have an article by John Stossel. And in this voice, we see 1, the sentences aren't too long. And 2, it assumes a very casual style of writing. Now, this person, they are voicing their opinion on the topic of using electric cars. So it is not an objective article, but a subjective one, yes. So this is his opinion on the use of electric cars. So the writer they are confident that they are right because obviously they're writing it and bringing it out. They're disapproving the thought that electric cars will do better for the environment or that they will be reliable in the long run. And they are assertive. So they know what their opinion is. They're setting it out there and they are disproving a general public opinion, right? And even challenging a president's stance on electric cars. Now, compared to that article, we have another one here entitled Electric Vehicles Are Less Reliable Because of Newer Technologies, Consumer Report Finds by Laura Kolodny and Michael Whelan in cbnc.com, November 15. So it reads, electric vehicles are among the least reliable cars and trucks in the automotive industry today, according to Consumer Reports rankings released Tuesday. When compared with hybrid and gas-powered cars and trucks, electric vehicles powered by batteries were the worst performing segment aside from traditional full-size pickup trucks, according to Consumer Reports. Reliability issues with electric vehicles were expected since most automakers, with the exception of early EV leader Tesla, launched fully electric models in recent years, said Jake Fisher, a senior director of auto testing at Consumer Reports. He said companies have not had time to iron out issues that impact reliability. Now again, both articles, they touch a similar topic, that electric cars, as they are now, they are not reliable. But this one, it assumes a more, I would say, objective stance, since they are just reporting on what the Consumer Reports personnel would have said or rankings would have shown. So the writers of this article, they are not inserting their own thoughts, opinions, they are just reporting what the rankings would have shown, and they also reported what the senior director of the auto testing at Consumer Reports would have said. So it is confident, assertive, but more direct than the last one. So there's no, well, you think this way and we are saying it this way, or one person says this, but I see this. They are just laying it plain and straight and reporting what has been found. And of course, they're using a reliable source since it is the Consumer Reports company and the senior director of the auto testing, right? So they know what they are talking about. So in terms of voices and academic voice, this would be a more academic appropriate type of style. Right. And so we move on to the writing process. Pre-writing, writing, and revising. So pre-writing. Pre-writing refers to the steps writers take to get to know their subjects before they begin to write. In pre-writing, you read, interview experts, jot down main points, or simply think about the subject. You are gaining mastery of facts on the subject while formulating your own thoughts on it. So we have technique number 1, review your notes. And this is especially true if you are doing literature. In literature paper 2, you have to answer certain questions relating to what you would have read in your previous years. Now, some students, of course, they will try to reread the entire book, all the poems, or rewatch the entire drama, reread the entire drama script. But to save time and energy, make sure that you review the notes that you would have took on each of these literary pieces, right? Ensure to review the notes, especially if you would have gotten handouts, worksheets, notes from other people who would have reviewed and spoken about the symbolism and the tone and whatever of these pieces. Ensure you review those notes. And as you read, ensure that you write down little annotations. So maybe on page 50, there's a symbol of whatever. On page 60, there is a personification or whatever. The writer mainly use personification or onomatopoeia to give this effect and that effect. So ensure that you review your notes. It's very time consuming to reread a whole book with multiple chapters, especially with people who wait until closer to the CSEC exams to reread these pieces. So ensure that you go over your notes again. If your teacher made extra annotations to as they go through class discussions, make sure you write down the questions being said during class discussion, because 9 times out of 10, you will see similar questions on the exam paper. All right, so our next technique is free writing. So write whatever occurs to you about a topic. As you write, don't worry about spelling, grammar, or punctuation. If you are stuck, or if no thought occurs as you write, take note of it and continue brainstorming. After free writing, your focus is likely to be narrower than before. you might try some focus free writing where you begin, should be begin right there, with a point or a specific question. So at free writing, you just write, as I said before, write whatever comes to you on the topic. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just do anything, whether it's a word, a sentence, a question, write it down. So here we have an example of free writing. And the person was tasked to write on a memorable moment. Sorry. So this is how they would have done their free writing. So as you can see, they have sentences, words, phrases, their lack of punctuations in some sections, but that is just the free writing process. It's not to be tailored technically, it is just to write down your ideas. So next, listing. One way to brainstorm is to start with a topic and list the words, phrases, or images that come to mind. You can review this list, underline one or more key terms, add or delete items, and look for patterns and connections. Focus on areas of most interest and add new ideas and arrange the items into main and sub points. Right. So here we have an example of this. A list for the dangers of social media and the internet. What is the internet? What is social media? Hackers, phishing, untrustworthy people, social media, parasocial relationship, lack of touch with reality, etc., etc. So this is how you would list under your specific topic. So whether it's global warming, should phones be kept in school, whatever, you know, they have certain topics that you will always need. How can the youth help in raising awareness on certain topics, etc., etc. So just do a list of the main things that come to mind, the main ideas, the main topics, the subtopics, terms that you can use in your essay. And of course, you might not use every single thing on your list, but it's just to get down your ideas in one place. All right, next, clustering. Clustering or mapping is a brainstorming technique that generates categories and connections from the beginning. Different essay types can have different clustering styles, but generally, all clusters contain the topic or main idea of the essay, subtopics or subordinate ideas, more ideas that explain or give evidence to subordinate ideas or topics. Clusters can also contain questions that rise from the topic. So here is an example of a cluster. And of course, we have to use it according to what we're covering today, the writing process. So we have pre-writing, proofreading, publishing, revision, first draft. So pre-writing, publishing, proofreading, revision, and the first draft, all of these would be the subtopics under the writing process. And of course, all those extra circles attached to each subtopic are more content that fall under each subtopic, and essentially the main topic itself. So here we have one that has main and subtopics only. So we have animal cruelty in underdeveloped countries. So we have topic 1, absence of strict laws to protect animals. Point 2, lack of empathy towards animals. And point 3, animals used for amusement. So clustering can help you set out the outline for your essay. So, again, with animal cruelty in underdeveloped countries, these 3 points, they would be the 3 paragraphs of your essay. And you would, of course, add more evidence to each point as you go along. And so we move to questioning. So asking questions is a good way to explore your topic. The basic who, what, when, where, why, and how helps us decide how to structure these questions, right? So who is doing the action? What is happening? When is it happening? Where is it happening? Why is it happening? How is it happening? These are just the basic question techniques. Additional techniques include looking at a topic dramatically. What does this mean? We look at it as an action. So who are the actors doing this action? We see it as a scene. Where is it happening? A means. How is it happening? And a purpose. Why is it happening? Or you can look at the topic as a static idea. So it has its own distinguishing features and parts, and a wave that changes over time, and a field that operates as a system. So that would cover the other 2 points underneath it. Looking at how the topic has changed over time, and looking at how the topic affects people and other ideas. So an example of this is, let's say the topic of your essay is on work. That is just the main topic. So you can ask several questions. What is work? Do the words work, job, and career mean the same thing to most people? How do we know when someone is not doing work? What is the opposite of work? So there we look at it as a static thing, the topic work. If we're looking at it as a wave, meaning that how it changed over time, we can ask questions. How has work changed over time? Over the past 30 years, have there been significant shifts in the number and kinds of jobs available in your country? And then lastly, we can look at it as a field which operates as a system. So we can ask, where does work fit into our lives? To what extent does a person's self-esteem depend on the job he or she has? What does work mean for society in which most jobs are in the service and communication areas? So again, you have to keep all of these things in mind. So if you need help with formulating questions, note the problems or questions your teacher uses during class discussions. And as I said before, and even not only in English literature at that, ensure that you pay attention to the discussion questions that your teacher uses, because you might see them again. All right, so additional pre-writing techniques. Keeping a journal, browsing the library, or using the internet, exchanging ideas with others, talking about the topics. Simple as that. So all of these are techniques that you can use to help you structure your essay and understand how you're going to write it, who is going to take part in it, which stance might take in as I write. And this will help you and make it so much easier to write your essays as you go along, not only for English language, but for any subject that you have to write an essay on. So that is it for today. I will see you guys next week. And on Tuesday, we will continue on conjunctions and prepositions. And on Thursday, we will continue with essay writing. We'll continue with the writing process, I should say, writing process. And the week after, hopefully, we can go through some past papers. We're going to start with paper 1 first, though. But if everything works out, that is, we will try to see what happens then. So thank you again for listening. I hope you will have learned something. And again, I will see you next week. Take care and have a wonderful weekend.